This video has been brought to you by my wonderful supporters on Patreon. Click the link below to see how you too can become a supporter. Now, if you've been around me for even an hour in a Discord server, you know that I have a certain love for a certain movie that you probably already guessed from the title. Released on July 2nd, 1986, The Great Mouse Detective is the 26th entry in the Disney animated canon, which tells the story of a little mouse girl named Olivia, who, alongside a mouse surgeon named Dr. Dawson, enlists the help of a master detective named Basil to help find her toymaker father, who has been kidnapped by Basil's arch-nemesis, Professor Ratigan, in order to use his mechanical knowledge to build a robotic duplicate of the Queen in order to overthrow the real one, so he has complete control of mouse life in Britain. You know, as you do. The film has a lot of things going for it. It was one of the first animated Disney movies to incorporate computer-generated imagery. It was considered the highlight of Vincent Price and Candy Candido's careers. It also launched the directing careers of both John Mesker and Ron Clements, who followed Detective up with The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Treasure Planet, Princess and the Frog, and Moana. It was the first film that ultimately saved Disney's animation department after the financial failure of their previous film, The Black Cauldron. And in spite of that, Disney's barely touched the film since then. It got a re-release in 1992, which also included the first home media release, a computer game that was only released in Europe, a short follow-up comic in 2006, and a pretty decent representation in Disney Lorcana. It has never gotten any representation in Kingdom Hearts, it never got a sequel during Disney's direct-to-video sequel era, and as of this writing, it is yet to be even considered for a live-action remake, which may or may not actually be a good thing. But it does seem really odd that the film that ultimately paved the way for the Disney Renaissance to exist hasn't really gotten any sort of proper love from Disney. I'm not going to go into the why of it all, but more how. How can we fix this? Well, obviously, Disney doesn't take unsolicited ideas from their fans, at least not without enough social media clout. So let's have a bit of fun and see exactly what could be done. I'm going to go through a list of things they could do in no particular order. Starting with...
Oh my god, her first word!
Another one.
As mentioned previously, The Great Mouse Detective managed to stay out of Disney's line of sight during a time when they were making sequels, midquels, and prequels to their animated films, whether they needed one or not. You might also consider this a net positive, since most of these follow-ups are usually seen as inferior to the originals, but I find this to be a moot point for a number of reasons. Number 1. The film ends with a sequel hook where someone else comes in requesting Basil's services. While official sequels in the animated canon didn't exist yet, it was clear they were gunning to at least leave the door open for a follow-up. Reminder, this was going to either make or break the animation division of Disney, so dangling a little carrot on a stick to further entice upper management to keep the lights on was a brilliant tactic in the grand scheme of things. Number 2. There are actual follow-ups to adapt. Now, it's rare for Disney to adapt a book that has an actual sequel. 101 Dalmatians had an official book sequel, but there was no way in hell Disney would have ever considered it, considering how out there of a plot it had. The Black Cauldron took most of its plot beats from the second book from the 5-book Chronicles of Prydain series. Mary Poppins had plenty of books, but Walt cherry-picked specific stories for the film. Great Mouse Detective, meanwhile, was an adaptation of the Basil of Baker Street books by Eve Titus.
Hello.
Note that I said books as in plural. Titus wrote 5 Basil books in her lifetime, with 3 more being written after her passing in 2002. That's a total of 8 books Disney could theoretically adapt. Note that the plot of the movie wasn't a direct adaptation of any of her books. This was, in its way, its own original work, with a few story beats from a couple books here and there. You know how Disney made a whole slew of Winnie the Pooh movies in the early 2000s? Yeah, do something similar to that, please. And number 3. Hey, did you know Eve Titus had another book series involving talking mice? Released in tandem with Basil of Baker Street, Anatole was a series of picture books about a mouse living in Paris, named Anatole, who worked in a human cheese factory as a taster, leaving anonymous notes to the cheesemakers on how to improve their products, which the humans don't know comes from a mouse. Now, according to the books, Anatole is Basil's cousin. Hey, why not do an adaptation of Anatole with very specific ties to Great Mouse Detective in the text? Or how about a sequel that acts as a pilot for a potential solo Anatole film? One of the newer books revolves around Basil and Dawson visiting Paris to investigate threats made to a cheese cook-off. You could adapt that so the two can directly interact with each other. But to do full-on movies would be a huge undertaking, especially with Disney's current regime. So maybe we need to think smaller. How about turning a Disney movie into a cartoon was the company's bread and butter for most of the 90s and 2000s. If a film did reasonably well, it got a TV show. The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, The Lion King, Hercules, Tarzan, Lilo and Stitch, and even Emperor's New Groove. They all got TV shows. Turning The Great Mouse Detective into an animated series is a no-brainer. I'm an absolute sucker for mystery and crime shows. Turning these books into half-hour or even hour-long adaptations could be a very easy way of adapting Titus's books. And with 8 books in total, that's a perfect little mini-series. But what if we're feeling a bit more ambitious than that? What if we go a step further and bypass Titus altogether and go straight for the source? What if Disney took the original Sherlock Holmes stories, adapted them for a Great Mouse Detective setting, and turned it into an episodic series? It can work! Because we have proof of that. Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century is a 1999 animated series made by a collaboration of Geek Entertainment and STV Studios. In it, Sherlock Holmes is brought back to life in the year 2103 by New Scotland Yard after a clone of Moriarty is seen hanging out with a notorious criminal they've been chasing after for years. Episodes are based on specific Sherlock Holmes stories, usually with some added sci-fi flair. For example, the adaptation of The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle changes the titular gemstone to a popular talking doll. The Adventure of the Empty House, a story that tries to explain the supposed death of Holmes in The Final Problem, turns into a story where Holmes and Moriarty supposedly get vaporized by a laser grid, leading to Watson and Lestrade taking the lead on the case of Ronald Adair, who in this interpretation is a world-class laser shooting champion who has been frozen to stone. By modernizing Doyle's stories for a millennial audience, it not only gives them their own unique take on the Holmes stories, it can encourage them to seek out the original texts and introduce them to the franchise as a whole. I feel like Disney has the potential to do the same here. As of 2023, all of Doyle's original stories enter the public domain, so Disney doesn't have to go through any legalities. You have a Sherlock Holmes associated world with the original stories just sitting there, ripe for adapting. It'd be stupid to pass this opportunity up. But it'd be sort of an uphill battle. Almost all of the original cast has passed away, Olivia's voice actress has long since retired, recasting everyone is gonna be a nightmare, and Disney hasn't really been all that interested in reviving old movies via TV shows. For example, the Disney Channel miniseries Fastlane was meant to be a revival of the Herbie franchise, but they got cold feet and had it retooled into original work. So if Disney isn't going to give Great Mouse Detective a cartoon series, how about...
I blame you! You did this! You did this!
Its tentacles tightened, sucking the marrow.
If there's been one facet where Disney's animated films have had new life, it's in comic books, specifically through Dynamite Comics. Dynamite's Disney comics have brought new stories from the animated canon in an easy and concise way. Lilo and Stitch, Hercules, and Zootopia all have comic adaptations with original plotlines. You also have the Disney Villain sub-series, which puts focus on the villains as they get up to their own stories, with Scar, Maleficent, Hades, and Cruella de Vil getting their own designated comics. Great Mouse Detective can easily have the best of both worlds. You can take the idea of adapting Doyle's stories with Basil and Dawson in the roles and adapt them into comic format, maybe even a graphic novel format if you really want to beef them up plot-wise. You can also give Ratigan his own series of comics for the Disney Villains range, showing some of his other schemes and criminal operations, maybe contending with other officers of the law outside of Basil, maybe even show how he became the self-proclaimed greatest criminal mastermind. But remember when I mentioned it got a one-off comic back in 2006? In the final issue of Disney Adventures magazine, readers were taken aback by the presence of a Great Mouse Detective mini-comic. In it, Olivia and a reformed Fidget, Ratigan's lackey in the movie, investigate a mystery all on their own at a traveling carnival. And you know what? Yeah, more of that, please. The way I see it, you can have the General Holmes adaptations be for a slightly older audience, while the Fidget and Olivia comics can be geared towards younger readers. Something more akin to the likes of Scooby-Doo, where their adversary's goal is as simple as scaring people away. Or you can take this opportunity to explain how Fidget survived his fate at the end of the movie, reconnected with Olivia, and what caused them to not only become close friends,
"You're my friend now,"
but start their own little detective agency. You can even have them cross over with the main comic line, having Basil, Dawson, Olivia, and Fidget teaming up to work on a much larger case. To compare it to another British staple, it'd be like a crossover between the Sarah Jane Adventures and Doctor Who. And if Disney and Dynamite want to really impress me, they can translate and re-release the Great Mouse Detective comics from the Netherlands. Yeah, the Netherlands got their own Great Mouse Detective comics, and no one else. Thankfully, a Great Mouse Detective fan site has been taking the task upon themselves to translate them and upload them for free. But it'd be amazing to have these comics translated with official lettering and released as a physical omnibus. We've seen Dynamite re-releasing old Disney comics before. Just look at their Kickstarter to republish the original line of Gargoyles comics. I can easily see them doing this here, which gives Disney and Dynamite the opportunity to go all out with backer rewards. Imagine a Great Mouse Detective branded magnifying glass, or a prop replica of the statue owned by Darkwing Duck. And speaking of memorabilia, that leads into the next avenue.
Come, walk this way, take a look. We put the picture's name on everything. Merchandising, merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made.
Now, don't get me wrong on this one, merch for Great Mouse Detective does exist. It has shirts, books, a Loungefly backpack, a magic band, some Funkos, a tote bag, and even a few plush toys. But for Disney, this is borderline the bare minimum. To give you an idea of how starved we are for Great Mouse Detective merch, for Disney's centennial celebration, the official Disney store launched a collection known as the Disney Decades, which saw movies from each decade get new exclusive merch. The 80s collection had merch for everything but Great Mouse Detective. You're telling me Black Cauldron got repped but not Great Mouse Detective? That's not a dig at Black Cauldron, believe me. I am all for getting more Black Cauldron merch, but I'd prefer it if they both got new merch. The area where Disney has put the most effort in for this movie merch-wise is in the pin trading circuit. There are plenty of pins related to this movie out there, but then again, that's the one area where a lot of movies and franchises flourish, so it's not like Great Mouse Detective is special in that regard. As such, it usually has come down to the fans to make their own merch. You'll find custom prints on sites like Redbubble and Etsy for things like shirts, stickers, and blankets. I'm sure Wish and Temu have stuff, but I am not dignifying them by giving them traffic. I even had to make my own Fidget shirt through Custom Ink. Though due to copyright, the only way I could get it to work was by taking his sprite from the title screen of the computer game, so there are limits. If it were up to me, if I wanted to get some really good Great Mouse Detective merch out on store shelves, I'd do it through specialty pop culture stores like Spencer's, Hot Topic, and Box Lunch.
Somehow it completely slipped Gokai's mind to check the Hot Topic website for any Great Mouse Detective merch, so I'm just gonna hop on there right now and tappity tap tap, and hey, look at that! Great Mouse Detective shirts! Nothing really substantial beyond that, like you're not gonna find a choker with a picture of Ratigan on it, but hey, it's better than Chicken Little's doing.
As someone that worked for Spencer's for a number of years, Disney has always been one of their biggest franchises. specifically Stitch and Nightmare Before Christmas. From my experience, the best sellers are shirts, keychains, mugs, socks, and hats. Slap characters on them and they will sell. But if you really want my money, invest in the plush market. Give me a plush of Fidget and I'll buy your entire stock. No questions asked. Now I know what you're thinking. What about merch inside the parks? Now I haven't been to the parks since 2019 and trust me, I couldn't find a lick of merch from this movie when I visited. The best I could do was get a sketch of Basil from one of the certified artists in some of the more animation-focused gift shops, but that was about it. You'd think they'd have something in the London Pavilion at Epcot, but the only franchises I could find there were Winnie the Pooh, 101 Dalmatians, Peter Pan, and, because they have distribution rights now, Doctor Who. But since we're on the topic of the parks, let's talk about...
Dad, when do we get to the ride?
This is the ride! Yippee!
So if you're unfamiliar with Tony Goldmark or his podcast Escape from Walt Disney, he has this segment called What's the Attraction? At the end of every episode, where he and his guests each decide how the topic of the episode can be incorporated into the parks.
So now that Amphibia is going to be this huge hit, especially with Disney Plus carrying it, it's going to be the most watched thing on Disney Plus, obviously. How are the parks going to capitalize on that? Gunther.
Lick the Toad's Wild Ride. You
Oh, yeah.
start the ride by licking a naked Gunther instead of a high check, and then you get in your motor car and you go through the wildest acid trip in the wilderness.
But what's the ride like?
You should know, you licked my butt.
Wait, that was your butt?
Yeah, you didn't see the cheeks?
Oh, God. Well, now I feel dirty.
Before we speculate, let's talk about what sort of presents the movie did get. Basil and Ratigan were both walk-around characters for a period of time, as they made appearances with Michael Eisner for some Disney Sunday movie introductions. And they were also loaned out to France for a music video tie-in. And yeah, France knew exactly what they were doing. I don't have concrete evidence, but Ratigan was allegedly retired due to being too frightening for younger guests. I don't believe they lasted too long regardless. Their last known appearance in the parks was for a special event in 2004, so they are definitely long overdue to come back. Give them a meet and greet area in the London Pavilion at Epcot, it seems the most appropriate. When it comes to actual rides, I highly doubt it'd actually get a ride anytime soon. They only give rides to the cream of the crop. Movies they know will stand the test of time to justify it being there for a lengthy period after the movie has left theaters. That being said, however, it seems the crew were banking on it getting a ride from the aerial chase scene leading up to Big Ben. That whole sequence seemed to be the most "we want this as a ride" as you can get. So for my entry in the What's the Attraction segment for this movie, if you use some of the ride tech from Soarin' or Star Tours, you could have a really fun motion simulator ride. If you really want to go the extra mile and get really immersed with the park guests, when you get to the part where Ratigan throws Fidget overboard, you could have a cast member drop a Fidget plush randomly somewhere in the audience for them to keep, giving the impression that you somehow managed to catch him mid-fall. Now, if a ride was out of the question, the next best stop would probably be a themed restaurant or dining option. I could easily see the Bad Guy Bar become its own sit-down establishment. You could have Ratigan and Fidget-themed food, era-appropriate ale or beer on tap for the adults, a piano player as live entertainment, and every few hours or so, you could have a live singer come out and sing Let Me Be Good to You from the movie. You could also bring back the Basil walk-around, maybe with a Dawson walk-around in tow, dressed in their sailor disguises, sneaking around in character, while also posing with guests for photo ops. If all else, you could easily retheme one of the gift shops at the London Pavilion to be Sherlock's home on Baker Street to sell Great Mouse Detective merch. The actual Baker Street in London has an entire gift shop dedicated to Holmes, including a little nod to Great Mouse Detective, so it'd be a fun parallel. Plus, if you still wanted to sell food, you could offer packaged versions of Mrs. Judson's cheese crumpets. There is a recipe for them in one of Disney's cookbooks, after all. I do have one more idea that I definitely think could be a fun inclusion, even if it isn't really a ride. Disney used to do these interactive scavenger hunts around World Showcase, themed to their animated shows in tandem with the Disney Parks app. It started out with a Kim Possible theme, then switched to a Perry the Platypus theme, before taking its most recent theme based on the 2017 DuckTales reboot. The general idea is you use the app to locate different items around each pavilion at World Showcase, which would usually activate some sort of animatronic hidden nearby. If Disney were to retool this into a Great Mouse Detective experience, I can see them taking a Carmen Sandiego approach. Maybe Ratigan has stolen various world artifacts, and Basil is tasking the park guests with helping recover them and arresting each member of Ratigan's gang before finally apprehending the criminal mastermind himself. And when you find and locate each stolen item, the animatronic shows that particular henchman getting arrested. Then the cutscene on your phone has them being interrogated, which then reveals where you need to go next. Out of my suggestions for park integration, I can easily see a Great Mouse Detective World Showcase attraction being the most plausible outcome. After all, the film's 40th anniversary is coming up. And just to self-indulge on my part, I would like a fidget walk-around character I could hug for an extended period of time, please and thank you. Where are the great? Get behind me, there's a line. So those are my ideas for how to do a lot more with this silly little mouse film. If you have any ideas for yourself, by all means, share them in the comments. Talk amongst yourselves and let that creativity flow. Daddy needs that engagement for the recommendations tab.
Matt, what's
now
the attraction?
You feel dirty.
Don't shame me. Don't kink shame me.
Sorry,
Matt.
I'm judged.
I think the ride is just Gunther with a PowerPoint slide just going through DeviantArt pictures of himself and going, look at this! Look at this!
The Carousel of Gunther.
Veggie teens